practicing law, right? You don't you practice law because you don't learn anything in law school. And in order to learn anything, you have to practice it in the real world. So then I started practicing law, and I started as a litigator. And I thought, I want to handle a trial. I did a trial, I won it. And then I said, well, I want to do an appeal, something even bigger, more stakes. I got the appeal, I won that, still dissatisfied. And I thought maybe it was my choice of law. So then I jumped over very, very untraditionally. I went from litigation to corporate law. And I did structured finance, the stuff that tanked our economies. I did $2 billion in deals a month. I was like one of the highest grossing associates in the structured finance world, and maybe responsible for tanking the economy. But at the same time, I did that for 5 years, and it still wasn't satisfying. Like it was the #1 law firm in structured finance, and I was doing $2 billion a month in deals, and I had an assigned black car, from my law firm, which you think is a blessing, but really it's a curse. It's because they didn't want me in the subway so that they could reach me at any time of the day. But they assigned the black car so it would drive me to and from work, and it would wait for me. If I went home to take a shower and sleep, it would wait for me outside. And it sounds like, oh man, what a luxury, but man, it's a curse, right? So I didn't really want that, and I had this dream that was the epiphany dream for me, which was there's a game called Robotron in the 70s. It's a game where you're a robot, and the left joystick controls left, right, up, and down, your motion, and then the right joystick controls where you're shooting. So left, right, up, and down. And then the screen is fairly blank, and then you run into the room, and then all these lemming robots come and chase you, and then you have to try to arrange it so that they're all chasing you from the same direction, and you're shooting in that direction, and you're killing them all. So I had a dream I was playing this game. Everyone I know loves this game. My brother loves this game. My brother's friends love this game. My friends love the game. I hate the game. I think it's really small-minded. It's really dull. It's boring. And, once you have a certain pattern, you follow it, and you can get through the screens fairly easily. So I'm dreaming that I'm playing this game, and I'm pumping in quarters in this machine, game after game. And then I run out of quarters. And I end up taking a $10 bill and running to the change guy, asking him, hey, can I get more change, more quarters for my $10 bill? And he looks at me and he goes, I'm sorry, there are no more quarters. And then I wake up, right? And that's the end of the dream. And I would have this dream 3 or 4 times a week. It wasn't recurring, but I had it 3 or 4 times. And I always found it really thought-provoking until I began to understand what that dream meant. What that dream meant is your quarters are your life units. And once you put your quarters into the game, you can't get them back, right? So once you decide to do something and you spend time doing it, you can't get that time back. You can get money back, you can get material items back, you can get cars, planes, all that stuff you can get back. You can rebuy it, you can renovate it, but time is one of those commodities that once you spend it, you can't get it back. And so I was spending money on this game that I hated, that everyone else loved. So whenever I told people I worked at Sidley Austin in structured finance, everyone would be like, oh my God, you're at a top tier law firm making crazy money, crazy bonuses, doing crazy, high profile Wall Street Journal-like work. And everyone respected it, but I hated it. So I just began to realize that, this game was like a metaphor for life. And I just said, I gotta step out. So I quit, started my first company thinking that's what I wanted, right? So in law, it's bizarre because you're paid for what you've done rather than what you're gonna do. It's unlike business where you're paid for, so if you ask an investment banker what he did yesterday, no one cares. It's what he's gonna be doing tomorrow and to generate the firm's money, right? So I thought that was more me and I could generate more value. So I started a company, and if I generate value, then I can receive some of the benefits. But I was mistaken because the first company you start, you have no idea what you're doing. I was telling Max on the drive here, I've got an expression, learn, earn, return. The first company you start, you learn the most. The second company you start, you'll earn the most. And the third company you start, you'll get back the most. And the reason this is the first company, you had no idea what you're doing. So I had no idea what I was doing. Things take 6 times longer than they should. They cost 6 times more than they should, and time happens 6 times faster than it should, right? So by the time you launch your product, you're, 218 times behind where you should be, right? And so the first company, I learned a lot, and then I started the second company, which I sold for cash. And that was a major, because I thought the goal was money, right? Like I thought, man, this is it. I've hit it big. Interestingly, I'm sitting on the beach in Thailand. I'm getting all these text messages from my friends. Oh my God, you're an overnight millionaire. And I thought, man, like I had no idea how long it was going to take to be an overnight millionaire. I mean, the company I sold took 2 years of hard work, of flying to Asia every month. You know, it took a lot of work, but people don't see that, right? So that's just another aside. But in any event, I made millions of dollars. I'm sitting on this beach and I'm thinking, you know, I could do whatever I want. I could sit on this beach for as long as I want. And I could buy whatever I want. The thing was, I had everything I needed, and I didn't like sitting on beaches. I'm more of an active adventure kind of guy. So I began to examine why I started this company, why I sold it, why, you know, just the process. And if anything, my biggest strength is I'm really introspective, which will come back in my last lesson to you guys. But in any event, I started thinking why I started this company, and as it turns out, it was really for me, really locally, as well as for my family, my wife, my friends, my brother, and my mother and father, and my friends, right? So I can, you know, help them when they needed help, which is, if you think about it, in terms of the world, such a small subset of the world, right? And I thought that's the point in time where I began to understand why, if you look at the two richest guys in our society, who are they? Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, right? You look at these guys and you watch them as they talk about their companies, Berkshire Hathaway and Microsoft. When they talk about their companies, they speak like a monotone robot. But then when you hear Bill Gates in his TED Talk about the eradication of malaria, he's like a 15-year-old kid. When he releases those mosquitoes to the audience, I mean, he's like a kid. And when Warren Buffett talks about his $50 billion donation to the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation, he's like alive. Like he's like 20 years younger than when he talks about the company Berkshire Hathaway. And why is that? Well, I think these guys got it, right? These guys get that money doesn't change people. Like, and that's what I realized on the speech. Like, money doesn't change people, people change people. So I have a joke that goes along with this. What do you call an asshole with money? A rich asshole, right? Right? Because if you're an asshole before you have money, you'll be an asshole after you have money. If you're embarrassed and shy before you have money, and you say, oh, once I get that money, I'm going to be able to, you know, be at a status, and I'll be able to ask that girl out or ask that guy out because I'll have confidence. Not going to happen. Money's not going to change you. You are who you are, and money will augment who you are, but it won't change you. So what changes you are people. So I began to think about my community of people that I was helping with my company, and I thought if I could expand that community, that's when it would be meaningful. So that's when so throughout the company that I sold, it was an overseas Filipino company. It took me to the Philippines frequently, and that's where I came up with the idea of GreenSoul Shoes. And the idea of the story came about where so the Philippines is a place with like 1% of the population owns 99% of the wealth, and the other 99% unfortunately own only 1% of the wealth. My cousin is one of the richest guys in the country, so he's like on the right side of that balance equation, depending on how you're looking at it. So when I had this business, it was in the Philippines, I would stay there for a month. He would take me, I would stay at his house. He had a huge mansion in the downtown Manila, right beside a golf course that I think he was a member. It was $1 million membership fee, and like, I think $250,000 a year annual membership fee. So it was like a one-time buy-in of $250,000 a year just to play golf. And he was a member, and whenever I would go there, he would take me out to 5-star restaurants, 5-star bars, 5-star clubs, 5-star hotels. And that was fun, but for about 3 months. Because after a while, I began to want to really connect with my customer. My company was an overseas remittance company. The Philippines is a country that sends 1 million people out of the country every month to work as contract workers. So their GDP is 80% supported by these overseas monies coming back to the country. So they're really an outsourced labor country. And so I was trying to meet these guys' needs because they have they didn't have a good way to get money back into the country. So I created a technology that allowed that. And my technology team was based in the Philippines since it was a Filipino company. And so I would go there and he would take me out to these clubs, and I was like, you know, I want to meet some of my customers, you know, maybe some overseas workers or customers that live and work here. And he would say no. He would always push back, saying, no, it's dangerous. You know, I have to get rabies shots. You know, if they touch you, you're going to have to disinfect yourself. So he definitely had a different perspective of the locals than I did. Eventually, for my birthday, he took me to a place. He actually said, get in the car. And I said, oh, okay, what place are we going to now? And he said, we're going to a place called Smoky Mountain. And I thought, oh, Smoky Mountain, that sounds like a meatball place. You know, I wasn't sure what it was. It turned out to be a landfill. It was like a 300 or 500 acre landfill. It was a mountain built on garbage. And then people had a shanty town that they lived on garbage. Like, I'd never seen anything like it. When you walk on their streets, you're walking on like 100 feet of garbage. Garbage piled up. And their houses, they have to keep moving their shanty homes so that they can move them, because as the garbage goes up, they need to move their houses to keep up with the level of the land that's always changing. And so I was watching some kids play soccer with a ball made out of rags. And I watched a kid as he stepped on a rusty circuit board or a piece of glass. And I watched as he picked up his foot, squeezed blood out of the gash, shrug his shoulders, and hobble back to playing. His first step being in a puddle, because it's a really wet country. And by the way, it's called Smoky Mountain because the garbage, they put food and paper and the food compost at a high temperature, and there's no escape, so eventually it flames up. And then if you look at the mountain, there are like these pockets of like this methane gas and smoke rising from the mountain. And it smells, I mean, it's amazing, the human condition.